Hey YouTube, what's shaking? Redstone Piper here. I'd like to do a little VR from man 4-eyed Piper. In honor of you, sir, I'm even wearing my glasses. These are just readers, but I need them in the studio when I do intricate work. And actually, I tend to just leave them on sometimes. I forget I'm wearing them, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm going to need like a real pair soon because I used to have eagle eyes. Not so much anymore. Not so much. Uh, so, congratulations on the 150, approaching 200. For all I know, you're already at 200. I don't know. But anyway, you're cruising right along, and that's awesome. So, in celebration of that, I'd like to reach out with the VR and answer your question, or the 4-eyed pipe widow's question. I gotta say, that's some deep topics that you hit on, brother. Oh man. Uh, wow. Well, I gave it some thought, and I'm gonna have to answer both because my answers they would be so tied together. So sit back and relax because I'm gonna try to power through this story really fast though. So you're you hit on something that is on my mind literally every day of my life now. It's driven every decision that I've made in the last 5 years, and it's driven every result that I've seen in my life changing over the last like 5 years. So yeah, a few years ago, back when my son was like four-ish, um, his mom and I, we had an amicable split up, and decided to go our separate ways. We hadn't even really done that yet. We were just going to, and I was working for, I was working on a movie, and it was a weird situation. Like we were split up for about 6 months, and we were both figuring out where we were going to move and what we were going to do. So we just shared the same apartment for a while. Um, I was working on a movie, doing visual effects, and the movie was a vampire movie. So one of the actresses in this movie, she actually had been in a Friends movie, so I knew of her, and we'd even spoken, we chatted, joked around over text and stuff. But she lived in a different city, so I had never met her. Well, she was the star of this movie. She was like the leading lady in this movie, and she was at some point she vamps out, and she's like flying around on wires and stuff. So a big part of my job was I was supervising, and I kind of took on the biggest scene in the movie, which was this huge scene where they filmed it in a warehouse with green screen, but they wanted to make it look like it was being filmed in a warehouse. Sometimes these things happen in movies. Like, why didn't you guys just take the green screens down and shoot? Whatever. Anyway, so I'm green screening, and she's like flying through the air, and I'm removing wires. So I'm doing all this work on her. Well, I mean, everybody on this production was in love with this girl. Like, she was gorgeous. She was funny. She was a like freaking amazing actress, and she had done several movies. And I'd seen her, in different things, and knew of her. And anyway, she came in to do her DVD commentary scene. They shoot behind the scenes footage, and I volunteered. I was like, oh man, I'll run camera. You need me to run camera? No problem. I'll stop what I'm doing, and is she here yet? I'll do it. So yeah, I went back there and ran the camera. And actually, I kind of worked it out that I was going to do a little photo shoot for another prospective movie that she might have been in, that a friend of mine wanted to shoot, and he was going to try to, since I was going to be there, she's going to be there. So we did a little photo shoot afterwards where she's like posing all scared for this movie, cover to try to sell the movie basically, and um, and she ended up asking me if I wouldn't mind doing headshots for her, and we just started talking. Anyway, over the next like 6 months, by then I was living somewhere else. We eventually we decided to start a long distance relationship, which anyone who's been in one knows that's probably a bad idea, but we did. Um, Took about 4.5 hours to reach each other. So we saw each other every week. I was living, at that point, I was working on a different movie where this other guy and I were basically living there, making that house our production house. We were doing all the editing, and we were even shooting some of the stuff there, and we lived there. But that house was eventually going to be sold and probably torn down because it was kind of old, and the property value was crazy if they just tore it down and built a mansion there. So we knew that was not going to be a long-term solution. Like, I couldn't just live there forever, but starving artist, whatever. I'm going to live here right now and worry about other things later. So that was where I was at that time. And at some point, she was driving 4.5 hours. I would drive 4.5 hours. We would drive, 2.5 to 3 hours and meet somewhere in between every single week, sometimes more, depending on what was going on. And it was killing us. It was so much travel. Well, when you looked at what was keeping me here and what was keeping her there, she lived like 2 doors down from her mom and her little sister. She was very involved in their life. Saw them every single day. Like, she saw them every day. She was at all of her sister's games. She was a cheerleader. She was at all of she was beauty pageants, all this stuff that was always constantly going on. And she was very involved in their lives. On the other hand, my deal with my son was that I'd get him every other weekend. He lived with his mom, and he would come and stay with me every other weekend, and that was what we worked out. And it was working out really nicely for him. She ended up having another child, so he had a little brother, and he had a really great home life there. But he and I always had our own bond. Like, we had our own thing, and we kept it up. We've always been very, very close. And having him in my life was like, I had to have him in my life as much as possible. But over trying to figure out if she was going to sell her house and move here and move away from her mom and everything, or if I was going to move there, the decision, and it's crazy when I think about it now because I know what kind of problems it caused later, but the decision at the time seemed a lot easier because effectively I would see my son the same amount of time if I just moved there and drove back every other weekend. And I would be driving only half as much. So it would cut all the driving time in half. Also, she bought a house a long time ago, so she owned a house already. So she was going to have to sell that and move. It really didn't make any sense. We'd already been together for a year. We were talking about getting married. I was like, well, I'm just going to be driving a lot. But I figured, well, I'm going to be driving half as much, so it can't be that bad. So I felt like it would be a relief to not have to drive as much and still see my son exactly as much time as I always had. So I made that decision. And what happened is, over the next couple of years, I lived there for about 2 years, and I wasn't making movies anymore once I got up there. The whole network of people that I was making movies with kind of, I just couldn't do it from there. I mean, things happen in filmmaking. It's a really volatile field, indie filmmaking, and I kind of had enough of it, to be honest. So I was sort of trying to find myself, figure out what I was going to do next. Looked for broadcasting jobs, looked for all this stuff. Ended up in IT because that was easier. And when I say IT, I couldn't find any really good IT jobs out there. So I was like fixing computers. And it didn't make the kind of money that I was making before. I just didn't have that kind of money anymore. So it became really difficult to drive back. So every other weekend became like every 3 weeks. After the first year, I think it got to where it was more like every month. And I was starting to really feel it. Like, I was starting to feel this deep emptiness and depression from it all. And I know that it was affecting him too, because he just, now we had FaceTime, and I would talk to him, and we would like read stories together and tell jokes, and it's great. FaceTime is awesome. We spent a lot of time together just talking that way. But it's just not the same. And anyway, eventually, I I realized that that I had made a big mistake. I don't know how I would have reasoned that at the time, because I really was wanting to make everything work. I wanted everything to work. I wanted to have my time with my son, but I wanted to have, you know, I wanted to go live with her and get married and all of that. You know, like I had this whole, I wanted it all. And it just wasn't possible. I mean, honestly, it wasn't possible. I should have, I don't know, I should have just said, admitted myself that that relationship was not going to work, unless she made a drastic decision, which I would have felt bad about. So there was no good answer there. But retrospectively, when I look back, you know, it was the worst decision of my life to move away from here, and in the end, it caused my son a lot of pain, caused me a lot of pain, and it was a hellish situation for both of us. So I don't know if that contributed to things or what, but eventually our relationship unraveled, and I decided that I needed to leave. And I didn't even really have a way to get back here, because at that point I had been working this very low pay, you know, computer repair job, and I didn't have too many options. So I moved even further. I moved in with a cousin, and I figured, okay, I'm gonna go there, save money, find a place to live back here, and move back as soon as possible. And I got into an even worse trouble money-wise there, because when I moved, I was able to transfer with my company and get there, but it just, the money wasn't there. I mean, it was just insane. It was an even more like poor city with fewer jobs even, and it was getting worse and worse. Anyway, it took me a year to get back, and I finally took a crazy job to produce a movie that the money was supposedly going to come in for, and I got back here, and as happens with movies, the money didn't come through. So I got here, got in a horrible car accident, had a very low paying job, barely got into an apartment, just, you know, I don't even know how I did it, honestly. I really don't know how it even all worked out, but somehow, you know, I got back here by the skin of my teeth with nothing, and that was the best decision that I ever made. And I have to tell you, it felt like I was making a great decision the first time, because I thought I was making the decision that would make everybody happy, that would give me all the things that I wanted in my life. My son, her, everything. And it was the worst. And the other decision led to a lot of misery, just endless moves. Moved there, moved back here, moved out again to get into my own apartment, and just moving and moving. It was exhausting, it was difficult. The car wreck, all these horrible things. And that was definitely the best decision of my life. So now I'm living here, and my son comes here every other weekend for Christmas, around, you know, the holidays, spring break, anything like that. I get him for a whole week straight. I talk to him constantly. I feel like I'm in his life in a way that I didn't realize it, but I couldn't be from afar. They're just things that just wouldn't work out. So it became clear to me once I moved back, all of the opportunities that I would miss, you know, by having to drive, you know, and spend a bunch of money that I may or may not have. And not to mention, I'm telling you what, the most depressing Christmas ever is hiding your presents in the closet of your hotel room, and then like sneaking them out to the little desk with the phone, and basically that's your Christmas tree, you know. And then I think he loved it. I don't think he minded at all, but I was like, this is ridiculous. So now we get a real Christmas tree, put it in my living room, and he comes down here. We have a workshop. We build models. I taught him how to solder. I'm teaching him how to program. He's making his own video games. So he was around 5 around the time I was moving, and now he's 12. But not that we were estranged for that long. I mean, it's been years since I've come back, but it's been like 3.5 years, almost 4, since I came back. But yeah, Yeah. So it's one of those cases where you just you can use all the information that seems logical and make decisions that seem logical, and in the end, it kind of blows me away sometimes how completely wrong I can be, and it shows me that sometimes logic is not enough. The gut feeling has to come into it, and my gut feeling at the time told me that it was a bad idea to move away, no matter how how logical it seemed, and I should have listened to that. I wish I had. I would rewind and change it all in a heartbeat. I have to say, I had some great, 3 great years with her, in many ways. I mean, it was definitely the most rewarding relationship I've ever been in. It had some serious problems, and that's why I had to leave. But it was a lot of happiness too that I had to walk away from. But I wouldn't second guess that. I wouldn't change a thing about my decision to leave. And in fact, if I could go all the way back, I would never have moved there in the first place. And I would forfeit that, because there is no happiness that compares with the time that I've had with my son since I came back. So there you go. Worst decision ever. Luckily, followed by the best decision ever, rather than the other way around. That would have been terrible. And that's my little story about me. Real quickly, I am smoking some Northwoods, Boswell Northwoods. I think you mentioned you were going to get some, so let me know. Did you get any? What do you think? I gotta say, this is my first bowl of it, and I've only had one bowl of the Frog Morton so far. But my first thought when I lit this up was, holy smokes, it's Frog Morton. I mean, seriously. It is very similar. Very similar. Really good. This is an amazing blend. It has that same... I swear, there's even that kind of like alcohol-y, I don't know what it is, you know, some kind of essence. It's really good. Railway station, or railroad station. I hear that's another really good one from Boswell. So I'm going to order that one next time when I refill on this, because I'm going to smoke all of this. I just know it. I got 3 ounces, and I'm going to go through it because it's really good. So I hope you got some. If you haven't gotten any, don't forget to order some, because this is good stuff. Boswell has plenty of it in stock. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening to my rambling VR. Thank you for asking such a deep question and digging up all that personal tragedy for me. No, I'm just kidding. Now you know a lot more about me. So, again, congratulations, and hope to win that awesome prize. All right, peace, you guys. Redstone Piper out.